Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into a topic today you might not expect.
Oh,
Quality physical education, or QPE.
interesting.
Now, before you think we're just talking about gym class, hold on.
Okay.
We're going way deeper than dodgeball and those awkward PE days.
Right.
We're going to uncover how movement and learning are intertwined, especially in those early years when brains are like sponges soaking up everything.
I like that analogy.
We'll be exploring a chapter from Timothy Lynch's book, Physically Educated, Developing Children's Health and Well-Being Through Movement and Motor Skills.
Fascinating. Lynch's work is so interesting because he really highlights that connection between movement and learning.
Right.
He argues that quality PE is more than just physical activity. It's a planned, progressive learning experience that actually shapes the way kids learn.
Makes me think about those kids who just seem naturally coordinated,
Uh,
the ones who could catch anything thrown their way. Is there a reason for that?
There is, and it might surprise you. The UNESCO defines QPE as a planned, progressive learning experience that's crucial for lifelong health and well-being. It goes beyond just running around. It's about building skills and confidence through movement.
So it's not just about being physically fit.
Right.
It's about developing those mental and social skills, too.
Precisely. Especially in today's world where, kids are spending more and more time indoors and less time moving.
Yeah.
Quality PC becomes even more crucial for their overall well-being. Think about it. When kids are active, they're not just burning energy.
Yeah.
They're building their brains, improving their coordination, and learning how to interact with others.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm starting to see how this goes way beyond just gym class. But what about play? Isn't that just kids being kids?
Play is actually a powerful tool for learning. Think back to your own childhood.
Okay.
Remember all those hours spent building forts and playing make-believe, running around with friends? You were learning problem-solving, creativity, and social skills without even realizing it.
I never thought about it like that. It sounds like play is actually aligned with how kids learn best through exploration and interaction.
Exactly. Lynch emphasizes that play is essential for child development, especially from a sociocultural perspective. This perspective recognizes that learning happens best in social settings where kids can interact, experiment, and learn from each other.
So encouraging play is actually encouraging learning. That's a pretty powerful idea.
It gets even more interesting when you consider the impact on a child's overall development.
Okay.
Play fosters imagination, intelligence, language development, social skills, and even those perceptual motor skills that are so crucial for coordination and movement.
It's amazing how something as simple as play can have such a big impact.
Yeah.
And it's not just theory. Here in Australia, curriculum frameworks like the UALF and ARARA recognize the importance of play-based learning and have incorporated it into their guidelines.
Right. They understand that play isn't just about having fun, it's about building the foundation for a child's future success.
This brings us to another fascinating point. QPE isn't just about physical development. It's about supporting the whole child.
Absolutely.
We're talking about their social, emotional, intellectual, and physical well-being all working together.
It's about recognizing that all these aspects of a child's development are interconnected. Think about the 7 dimensions of wellness:
Okay.
physical, intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual, environmental, and occupational. They all play a role in a child's overall well-being.
Okay, that's a lot to consider. And it's making me realize how much we might be missing by simply focusing on traditional PE activities.
Well,
But there's one thing I'm still curious about. Lynch mentioned something called the hidden curriculum.
yeah.
What exactly is that?
Think of it like this. You walk into a classroom, and you immediately get a sense of the atmosphere, the values, the expectations.
Right.
There are things that are communicated without being explicitly said. That's part of the hidden curriculum, those unspoken messages that shape our understanding of the world.
So how does this hidden curriculum play out in physical education?
Well, it can manifest in subtle ways, sometimes even unintentionally. Let's say a PE teacher always chooses the most athletic students for team captains. What message does that send to the kids who aren't as athletically inclined?
It sounds like it could reinforce the idea that only certain types of bodies or skills are valued.
Exactly. And that can have a lasting impact on a child's self-esteem and their willingness to participate in physical activities. Lynch argues that we need to be aware of these hidden messages and challenge them to create more inclusive environments for all kids.
That's a powerful idea. It's like we're uncovering those unspoken assumptions that can sometimes limit kids' potential. Now let's talk about those essential building blocks of fundamental movement skills, or FMS.
These are the skills we often take for granted, like running, jumping, throwing, catching things that seem simple, but are actually crucial for a child's development. They're like the alphabet of movement. The foundation for all those more complex movements they'll learn later on. Imagine trying to play basketball without being able to run or dribble a ball.
Okay, I'm starting to see how important these basic skills are,
Yeah.
but why are they called fundamental?
They're fundamental because they form the basis for all other movement skills.
Okay.
They're the foundation upon which children build more complex and specialized movements as they grow and develop. Think of it like learning the alphabet before you can write a story.
Yeah.
You need those basic building blocks to create something more complex and meaningful.
So mastering these fundamental skills is like setting kids up for success in all sorts of physical activities later on.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And understanding those fundamental skills can help us identify when a child might need extra support or guidance to reach their full potential.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how do these FMS actually develop? Is there a specific timeline or process?
There is, and it's fascinating how these skills progress over time. We'll be diving into that in more detail in part 2 of our deep dive. But for now, it's important to understand that there's a certain window of opportunity when kids' brains are particularly primed for developing these skills.
You've definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
I can't wait to learn more about this critical window of opportunity.
We'll be uncovering that and so much more in part 2, so make sure you tune in to learn about the fascinating journey of motor development and how we can support kids every step of the way.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back to our deep dive into quality physical education. Before the break, we were talking about those fundamental movement skills, or FMS,
Right.
and how they're like the building blocks for more complex movements.
And you know those simple games we all played as kids?
Yeah.
Like tag, hopscotch, Red Rover.
Yeah.
They're not just about having fun, they're actually crucial for developing those FMS.
Huh.
They provide a safe, inclusive, and engaging way for kids to practice running, jumping, throwing, catching, and so much more.
So those games are like mini training grounds for those essential skills.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how we can make sure all those classic games are truly inclusive and enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah, you're right. Lynch acknowledges that some traditional games, like British Bulldog or Dodgeball, can sometimes be a bit rough or exclusionary.
Right.
But he suggests that instead of throwing those games out entirely,
Yeah.
we can get creative and modify the rules to make them safer and more inclusive.
I like that approach. It's about finding that balance between preserving the fun of those games while ensuring that everyone feels safe and included.
Exactly. It's all about adapting to the needs of the children and the context. After all, quality physical education is about creating positive experiences that build confidence and a love of movement.
Speaking of developing those skills,
Yeah.
Lynch provides a really cool visual in his book
Oh, yeah.
that helps us understand how those essential movements progress over time.
Okay.
He shows how it all starts with those reflexes we see in infants and gradually evolves into those fundamental movement skills we've been talking about.
He highlights the progression from reflexes and reactions to rudimentary movements, then to fundamental movement skills, and finally to those specialized movements we see in sports and other complex activities. It's a journey that unfolds over time, and each stage builds upon the one before it.
Okay, so it's like a roadmap for how movement skills evolve throughout childhood.
Yeah,
But it's not just about physical development, right?
you're right. This roadmap isn't just about physical skills. It's also about cognitive and social emotional growth. Think about it. As children master new movements, they're not just getting stronger and more coordinated.
Right.
They're also gaining confidence, learning to problem solve, and developing a sense of accomplishment.
Wow, I'm starting to see how all these different aspects of development are so interconnected.
They are. And Lynch makes a crucial point about the importance of providing opportunities for children to develop those fundamental skills as early as possible.
Clear.
Ideally before they reach that proficiency barrier we talked about earlier.
Right, that's the point around 7 or 8 years old,
Yeah.
when it becomes more challenging to develop those fundamental skills.
Exactly. So we need to be proactive, not reactive, when it comes to supporting kids' motor development.
But we don't want to turn playtime into drill time.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely not. Remember, Lynch emphasizes the importance of play and enjoyment. It's about creating environments where children can explore, experiment, and develop those skills naturally through play and guided exploration. This is where the expertise of early years educators becomes so crucial.
Right.
They need to understand child development, motor learning principles, and how to create those engaging learning experiences.
It's a reminder that teaching young children is both an art and a science.
And it's an investment that pays off in the long run. When children have a strong foundation in fundamental movement skills, they're more likely to be physically active throughout their lives,
Okay.
which has a ripple effect on their physical and mental health.
Okay, so we're setting them up for a lifetime of healthy habits.
Precisely. And remember that information processing model we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
Lynch emphasizes the importance of this model for understanding how children learn new movements. It highlights the role of perception, decision-making, and action in the motor learning process.
So it's not just about mimicking movements, it's about understanding the why and the how.
I got it. And this is where feedback becomes crucial. Effective feedback helps children understand what they're doing well,
Okay.
what they need to improve,
Yeah.
and how to make those adjustments. It's like having a coach in your corner guiding you toward mastery.
I like that analogy. And I remember Lynch providing some great examples of how educators can use metaphors and analogies to make those learning experiences more engaging and memorable.
Oh, right.
Like that swimming analogy.
Yeah,
Telling a child to glide through the water like an arrow can help them visualize and feel the movement in a whole new way.
exactly. It's about tapping into their imaginations and making those abstract concepts more concrete and relatable.
It's about meeting them where they are and helping them connect those dots. And Lynch points out that parental involvement can also play a significant role in supporting motor development.
Oh, for sure.
He highlights a program called the Perceptual Motor Program, or PMP, which has shown great success in improving children's motor skills when parents are actively involved.
That's a fantastic example of how families and schools can work together to create those supportive learning environments. It takes a village, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of that critical period for developing those skills, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the importance of providing those movement opportunities before children reach the proficiency barrier.
Yeah.
Can you explain what's actually happening in the brain during that time?
It all comes down to myelination, which is the process of forming a fatty sheath around nerve fibers. This sheath acts like insulation, speeding up the transmission of nerve impulses.
Okay.
Think of it like insulating electrical wires.
Uh-huh.
It makes the signals travel faster and more efficiently.
So it's like supercharging the brain's wiring.
Exactly. And this process is most active in the early years,
Yeah.
which is why those early movement experiences are so crucial. They provide the stimulation that encourages myelination and helps those neural pathways develop optimally.
It makes sense that if we want those connections to be strong and efficient, we need to provide the right kind of stimulation during that critical window.
Right.
And the best kind of stimulation for young children is play.
You got it. Those playful movements, those explorations of their environment, those interactions with others, they're all contributing to the wiring of their brains and setting the stage for a lifetime of learning and development.
Yeah.
Those early movements are like laying the groundwork for everything that comes later.
Wow, that's an incredible image.
And it's a powerful reminder that those early years are truly a time of incredible potential. We have the opportunity to shape those young minds and bodies in profound ways.
Right.
And quality physical education is a key part of that equation.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from the definition of quality physical education to the neuroscience behind motor development.
Right.
And we've seen how those seemingly simple movements and games can have a profound impact on a child's overall well-being.
Absolutely.
But before we move on to part 3, I'm curious to hear what's standing out to our listeners.
Yes. What's resonating with your own experiences, either from your childhood or from your work with children? We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections.
Share them with us on social media, send us an email, or just take a moment to reflect on how these ideas might shape your own approach to movement and learning. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about theory.
Right.
It's about putting these insights into action.
Exactly. It's about empowering ourselves and the children in our lives to move with confidence, joy, and purpose.
And that's a mission worth pursuing. Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll explore how we can all become advocates for quality physical education. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been talking all about quality physical education, and I think we're ready to talk about what we can actually do with this information.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to first challenge that old view of PE as just a break from academics or a way to burn off energy.
It's not an extra, it's essential.
Exactly. So we need to advocate for QPE in our schools,
Right.
making sure that kids have access to well-trained teachers,
Yeah.
appropriate facilities, and enough time for movement throughout the day.
It's not just about scheduled PE classes.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of movement throughout the school day.
Right.
Brain breaks, active learning activities,
Mm,
even encouraging kids to walk or bike to school.
yeah,
It's about making movement a natural part of their day.
absolutely. And this is where parents, caregivers, and community members can all play a role. We can create movement-rich environments at home, encourage active play, and most importantly, model a love of movement ourselves.
I love that. We can't expect kids to be excited about moving if we're not.
Yeah.
But what about, those times when we can't get outside
Yeah.
or we're limited by space?
Right.
Are there things we can do indoors to encourage movement?
There are. Think about, those simple games we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Things like hopscotch, Red Rover, even just having a dance party. These can all be great ways to get kids moving indoors. And remember, you don't need fancy equipment or a lot of space.
Yeah.
Sometimes just using your imagination is enough.
I'm picturing a giant pillow fort obstacle course right now.
Exact.
Sounds fun. But Linja also encourages us to go beyond just providing opportunities for movement. He wants us to become observers of children's movements. He wants us to watch how they move in different settings and really pay attention to their coordination, their balance, their confidence.
It's about becoming more attuned to those subtle cues that can tell us so much about a child's development.
Right.
Remember those phases of motor skill development we discussed?
Yeah.
Can you spot the different phases in the children you interact with?
Hmm.
Are they still in the cognitive phase, figuring things out?
Right.
Or have they progressed to the associative or even the autonomous phase?
Like becoming a movement detective.
Exactly. And once we have that awareness, we can start to think about how we can support those skills, how we can create opportunities for practice, and how we can celebrate those little victories along the way.
It's about being present,
Yeah,
being observant,
right.
and being responsive to a child's needs. So as we wrap up this deep dive into quality physical education,
Yes,
I want to leave you with a final thought. Movement is more than just physical.
absolutely.
It's emotional, it's social, it's cognitive. It's about joy, exploration, and connection.
And it's a journey that lasts a lifetime.
It really is.
So let's embrace the power of movement for ourselves and for the children in our lives. Let's make it a priority, a celebration, a way of life.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. We hope you learned something new about the power of movement. Until next time, keep exploring, keep moving, and keep learning.